Takeoff. F-16Vs back in the skies as US pushes for prompt delivery of more jets. Red light, green light. The government mandates vaccine proof to enter entertainment venues. Shifting fortunes. A new Guatemalan trade office opens, but it's not all smooth sailing in Taiwan's ties with Central America. Pretty in pink. Cherry blossoms bloom across Taiwan, but why are they ahead of schedule? A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. President Tsai Ing-wen on Friday wished forces on the front line of China's grey zone warfare a happy Lunar New Year. Tsai handed out red envelopes filled with cash and visited pilots at the 7th Fleet at Zhihang Air Force Base in the eastern county of Taidong. She inspected F-5 fighter jets, recently fitted with an improved ejector seat. The country is upgrading its military hardware as tensions across the strait continue to test defenses.
我们现场7联队的弟兄姐妹也有同样的自信和能力，捍卫领空，保家卫国。空军出英雄，地勤一半功。我们地勤兄弟姐妹不分昼夜。
Taiwan's F-16V fighter jets are taking to the skies once again. The fleet was grounded after one of its planes crashed into the sea January 11th. The pilot and the plane's black box have since been recovered, and the search operation has just officially concluded. Following safety inspections, the remaining planes have been cleared to resume service as Chinese incursions into Taiwan airspace continue. Jaime Ocon has more.
Given the all-clear a week ahead of schedule, Taiwan's most advanced fighter jets took to the skies on Thursday after passing inspection.
不是飞机基建的问题，所以它复飞的时间比较快，要赶快开飞，让这些成熟的飞行员、完训的飞行员能够上飞机，然后重新去熟悉。
The F-16 is an integral part of Taiwan's air defense strategy. In 2019, Taiwan signed a deal with the U.S. to purchase 66 new F-16Vs and to upgrade its existing F-16 fleet. Of the 140 currently in service, more than 64 have been successfully retrofitted. Taiwan's next-generation fighters are set to be delivered by the end of 2026. But there are reports of U.S. officials trying to accelerate that process amid increasing political pressure from China in the region.
Well, I mean, I think that the Taiwanese military should acquire the equipment that it feels it needs. And I think that at that point where you already have a neighbor who is very clear that it wants to invade, and this is a clear and publicly stated objective that it trains for in the primary objective of the People's Liberation Army.
This month alone, China's Air Force has sent roughly 70 planes into Taiwan's air defense zone. And on Thursday afternoon, China accused the U.S. of illegally entering disputed waters after a U.S. destroyer was spotted sailing through the South China Sea. With Taiwan bolstering its defenses and the U.S. wanting to make its presence felt, both sides are focused on finding ways to deter increasing Chinese assertion in Asia. Patrick Chen and Jaime Ocon for TaiwanPlus.
The local coronavirus outbreak in Taiwan continues to spread. On Friday, health authorities revealed 23 new domestic COVID-19 cases, as well as 45 imported ones. The government is now implementing stricter measures to contain the outbreak, and a vaccine passes are now required to enter certain establishments. Bing Wang has more.
Starting Friday, visitors will have to show proof of full vaccination to enter certain establishments, including dance halls, bars, hair salons, saunas, and tea houses.
8大行业的，基本上进去就要能够利用，就是一定要大门两剂。
These entertainment venues were shut during the May 2021 lockdown, and businesses suffered. With the vaccine pass, the government hopes to allow these venues to remain open by only letting fully vaccinated individuals inside. Needing proof of vaccination may spill over to other businesses as well.
我们可以做到红灯、绿灯跟黄灯3种灯式灯号的辨识，希望能够让民众能够用最有效率的方式，还有最方便的方式，能够有通勤。
The new requirement was introduced in response to the spread of the Omicron variant and a rise in domestic COVID cases since the start of the month. On Thursday, in the southern port city of Kaohsiung, a 5-month streak of zero COVID cases was broken after a family of 3 tested positive. In the northern city of Taoyuan, where the current outbreak first began, 2 schools suspended classes for the day to test everyone and to do contact tracing. With over 70% of the population fully vaccinated and the launch of the COVID Pass, the government hopes to avoid another lockdown. Alex Chen and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
College entrance exams start in Taiwan today, with more than 116,000 students expected to take the test this year. But as COVID-19 cases are on the rise, both the authorities and students are taking extra precautions to make sure nothing disrupts the national exams. Our reporter Pichi Zhuang has more.
Students with masks on have their temperature taken and hands disinfected before entering the exam site. Many are worried about sitting for the college entrance test amid rising cases of COVID-19. Some students stayed home for days before the exams to avoid any chance of infection. And at least one student is taking his protection to the extreme.
10分钟换一个，因为就觉得很危险啊，风险高。
This year, the authorities are also taking extra precautions by introducing face shields for proctors and reducing the number of test takers per room from 42 to 36. There's also a round of disinfection between every test and at the end of each exam day.
有点像是那种清代那种考科举考试要关在那个小空间那样，我觉得有点小夸张，因为假如说不习惯。
The new precautions even extend into the lunch hour, when students will have to remain at their desks with single-use partitions.
我们会有巡场的人员哈，那在中午用餐的时间会巡逻。
And if a student does get ill, they will still be able to sit the exam. Every test site has a special area for those with fever or respiratory symptoms. According to authorities, 14 test takers who were in the middle of home quarantine or self-health monitoring will still be able to sit the exam at a quarantine exam site. With domestic COVID cases on the rise, both authorities and students are taking no chances ahead of the big exam. Rick Yi and Pichi Zhuang for TaiwanPlus.
A new Guatemalan commercial office opened its doors on Friday morning, and officials are hoping it will see even more of the country's major exports enter the Taiwanese market. But the move comes as businesses feel the bite from former diplomatic ally Nicaragua breaking ties. James Chater reports.
3, 2, 1.
Setting in stone a deeper trading relationship. Guatemala unveiled a new commercial office in Taiwan on Friday, and officials are hoping the trading post will expand markets for their key exports of cane sugar and coffee.
This is the newest of this network, is the number 22 around. We have in Washington, D.C., in Europe, in Mexico, South America, East Asia, and right now this is the second one in Asia actually.
In 2021, Taiwan's trade with Guatemala was worth nearly $300 million, a fraction of the total. But as the largest economy that still recognizes Taiwan, officials were keen to underscore the new office's importance.
大部分的国人对邦交很陌生啊，邦交国很陌生。那可以像以瓜地马拉的例子，除了政治上的关系之外，我们在经贸这个彼此的产业也都很多连结。那我们也希望透过这次金餐处的设立，让我们更多的国人能够认识，也到瓜地马拉去寻找这个好的投资的契机。
The new trade outpost comes at a rocky time for Taiwan's relations with Central America. In December, Nicaragua became the 8th country to sever ties with Taiwan since President Tsai Ing-wen first took office in 2016. The embassies of Nicaragua and Guatemala previously occupied a floor in the same building, and Friday's opening ceremony took place in the hall the two embassies used to share. The shuttered windows, a subtle symbol of the ups and downs of Taiwan's relations with the region. 5 days after breaking ties, Nicaragua unilaterally pulled out of a free trade agreement with Taiwan. Officials this week said they are drafting support measures for businesses impacted by the Central American nation's decision and underlined that Managua's actions contravened international trade laws.
仍然有效，只是因为尼加拉瓜没有照着国际法约的程序去走，执行上有它的违约的行为，所以在这种情况之下，我们终止，所谓的终止就是暂停实施我们所谓的 FTA。
For Guatemala's ambassador, though, the new trading office a symbol of commitment.
For us, Taiwan is a key partner as always. We have a very strong relationship and very healthy relationship between Taiwan and Guatemala.
No risk for now of this floor's other occupant moving out. Klein Wang and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
The European Parliament has passed a resolution condemning the deterioration of human rights and press freedoms in Hong Kong. The resolution calls on the Hong Kong government to release all political prisoners. It urges the EU to introduce sanctions against Hong Kong and Chinese officials responsible for what it calls an ongoing human rights crackdown. It comes more than a year after Beijing introduced a sweeping national security law and shut down 3 pro-democracy news outlets, with journalists facing charges of sedition and foreign collusion. France's parliament on Thursday denounced a genocide by China against its Uyghur Muslim population. The non-binding motion, led by the opposition Socialist Party, calls on the French government to amend its foreign policy towards China to take into account the plight of the minority Uyghurs in the Xinjiang region. This comes less than 2 weeks before Beijing hosts the Winter Olympics. More than 1 million Muslims have been detained in camps in Xinjiang, with human rights activists accusing China of using torture, forced labor and sterilizations against Uyghurs. China's embassy in France said accusations of genocide and other abuses were pure lies. The Ukrainian president has pushed back against comments by his US counterpart Joe Biden for using the words minor incursion in describing potential Russian actions at the border. Volodymyr Zelensky tweeted that there are no minor incursions, just as there are no minor casualties and little grief from the loss of loved ones. Earlier, Biden had said Russia's Vladimir Putin would pay a serious and dear price if he invaded Ukraine. Biden added that, quote, it's one thing if it's a minor incursion. The exchange comes as US Secretary of State Antony Blinken meets with his Russian counterpart in an attempt to dissuade Moscow from invading its neighbor. Tens of thousands of troops have amassed along the Ukraine border. Coming up, we take you to Shilin Night Market in Taipei City to see a gigantic cosmic UFO lantern that is out of this world. Details after the break.
台湾最有人情味的地方。
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus. For more great news from Taiwan and around the world, download the app TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching Taiwan Plus News. A reminder of our top story. President Tsai Ing-wen on Friday wished forces on the front line of China's grey zone warfare a happy Lunar New Year. She also inspected F-5 fighter jets, recently fitted with an improved ejector seat. The country is upgrading its military hardware as tensions across the strait continue to test defences. Cherry blossoms are blooming around Taiwan earlier than previous years. The pink flowers attract flocks of tourists to parks, forests and recreational areas. The flowering of the cherry blossom trees is usually seen as an indication that the winter season is coming to an end. Admiring the blossoms is a hugely popular activity for families and friends, especially during Lunar New Year. Seasonal cherry blossoms have arrived earlier than usual. Parts of northern and central Taiwan. Our reporter Sandy Chi spoke to Dr. Wei Jiang, a researcher for the experimental forest at National Taiwan University, and asked if climate change could be the reason.
Yangshan in Taipei, so the sakura Fuji trees is the first blooming forecast today. So I think it is, and the local name is Pingjing Village, so almost 70 to 80% already. But as I know that it may be earlier, a half month earlier than usual year. The other one is in Nantou, Xinyi. Actually, yesterday, the local governor held a festival for opening, for the sakura opening yesterday, and the forecast blooming period between today to early March.
Is this just happening in Taiwan, or is it also happening around the world?
According to my research group, we have collected many literature either from Japan, Korea, North American, and European countries. Their research indicates that in recent 20 to 30 years, the blooming date seems to be earlier, maybe 30 days to even 40 days. I should say that the dominant factor really is temperature, because we have a higher and higher temperature. So that makes the cumulative sum is even larger than usual. I think that is why the blooming date is earlier than past years.
The travel bubble between Taiwan and Palau has all but burst, with new quarantine rules for passengers arriving from the South Pacific island. Dozens of cases were reported in Palau this week. It's the island's first outbreak after having nearly 0 cases since the start of the pandemic. Taiwan is set to make a decision within weeks on the status of the travel bubble with its diplomatic ally, which has been in place since August. Under the stricter measures, passengers will now be required to undertake 5 days of quarantine in a designated government facility. In contrast, from next month, Thailand is ending quarantine for travellers fully vaccinated against COVID-19. The country had suspended quarantine-free travel in late December because of the fast-spreading Omicron variant, but it says deaths and hospitalizations have not spiked. Pandemic-related restrictions have hit Thailand's tourism industry hard. From February, vaccinated travellers will only need to take COVID tests on the 1st and 5th days in the country. One of the largest LGBT sports events in Asia kicks off in Taipei in a few months, and athlete registration opened this week. Thomas Koper at our partner station Radio Taiwan International has this report.
你有多久没有外出旅行？有多久没有放肆奔跑？
The registration for 2022 Asia Pride Games officially kicked off on Tuesday. The event will be held from April 29th to May 3rd. It was originally scheduled for last year but was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Contestants will compete in 15 sports and activities including bowling, tennis, volleyball, swimming, track and field, weightlifting, dodgeball, esports, softball, basketball, badminton, golf, running, table tennis and soccer. The competitions are open to anyone who isn't opposed to LGBTQ rights and loves sports. The chair of Taiwan Gay Sports and Movement Association, Yang Zichun, says that one of the highlights of the games is having numerous categories for non-binary participants. The organizers are also encouraging amateur athletes and enthusiasts to participate in separate categories. The president of Asia Pride Games Alliance and one of Taiwan's most prominent gay civil rights activists, Xi Jiawei, is also encouraging participation in the spirit of gender equality. He says that in the past there existed toxic stereotypes of masculinity in sports, which are now changing as openly homosexual athletes gain prominence. Taipei Deputy Mayor Tsai Bing-kun says that because of the COVID-19 situation, registration for the event is currently only open to people residing in Taiwan. If conditions improve, steps may be taken to include participants from Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. A number of cultural events and discussion forums will take place on the sidelines of the 5-day games with the aim of creating a friendlier and more equal environment in sports.
Taipei's annual Lantern Festival is one of the highlights in the city's festive calendar. This year's edition is ready to welcome visitors to the city's Shilin district on February 11th. TaiwanPlus reporter Ken Ning tells us more about what we can look forward to.
They come in all shapes and sizes. The main lantern for this year's Taipei Lantern Festival is a gigantic 2.5-ton red and white cosmic UFO.
我们的湖，我们的祥湖，就当司机，把这个飞轮来开到了我们士林地区，然后能够让士林一整年灿烂起来。
The 10-day Taipei Lantern Festival is all set to kick off next month, although the city government is keeping a close eye on the domestic COVID situation.
我们的人数上面也还没有这个特别的限制。舞台区我们会做管制，赏灯的部分是比较是走动式的。我们也希望说能够尽量的，大家一定要口罩戴好戴满，然后疫苗打好打快。
Shilin is renowned for its night markets, filled with traditional Taiwanese eats alongside trendy fashion outlets. These outdoor markets are safer for gatherings during COVID.
因为夜市这个是算通风比较好的地方，没有遮盖嘛，我是觉得还好。
The pandemic has hit many night market vendors hard, with no international tourists allowed into the country for almost 2 years. For local businesses, the Lantern Festival is a chance to make up for lost time.
这次疫情也取消蛮多的活动，在地的协会还是跟一些庙宇还是会结合。 跟店家结合，就是推出一些行销的活动。
After 2 years of uncertainty, locals are hoping the Taipei Lantern Festival will bring a shine back to one of the capital's most famous neighborhoods. Bill Kahn and Ken Ning for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan is the home of most people who use traditional Chinese characters. Join us as we take a look at the history and beauty of this form of writing.
伫台湾花莲市开一间咖啡店有61年啊，会当坚持开61年，其实就是希望讲大家会当来多多写字，写字是一个真快乐的代志，尤其是现在是电脑遐尼发达的时代，而且中华民国的国字正体字。 普通或者讲汉字本身就是一个真历史真久、形式真水的文字。全世界目前有差不多4000万人用这个正体字，台湾就是其中之一。正体字是一个译文的文字，5世纪开始就用到即马。 已经有1500年，其中记载中华民族5000年来的这个传统文化，甲人文。正体字自古以来，有亚洲地区有真大的影响，包括日本、韩国、越南，拢总有。不过因为已经 时间真久啊，家己有成一种的文字啦，甲即马咱纯的正统汉字，小可无共款。若是外国朋友 对中华文化趣味，就来台湾看看。台湾的街头巷尾大路，各种的招牌，会当看到真水的正体字，而且会当来学习正体字，靠这个学习有千年历史的传统的汉字，来感受到中华文化5000年来的风貌，而且会当享受到台湾在地人情味，甲真水的风景，个真好食的食物。
Vets at Taipei Zoo have given a checkup to Tuan, one of their giant pandas. Late last year, zookeepers noticed that the 17-year-old male had nosebleeds and was sneezing a lot. The zoo decided to give Tuan a full exam, popping the panda on the table to measure his blood pressure and investigate any issues in his nose, mouth and eyes. The vets confirmed that Tuan has had an inflammation in the nasal cavity, but is otherwise healthy. Thanks for watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Yin Khvat. We leave you with pictures of scientists investigating the impact of climate change on Antarctica's penguin populations. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, please download the TaiwanPlus app. Stay safe and see you next time.